Welcome to another episode of Be Your Own Boss. Joining us all the way from Australia, our guest this week is Preetie Boler, the founder of Empowered by Design. Preeti is a lawyer and she started her business while still working. Born and raised in Malaysia, she later migrated to Australia. Preeti's is a powerful story, a story of struggles, troubles, and triumph. There was a point in time when she wanted to end her life, to put an end to the suffering. The bounce back from there, the challenges of being a single mother, a career woman, an entrepreneur. We talk about all these things in this episode. We talk about the different kinds of barriers to women empowerment in the society. And also, I talk about my dream in this episode, the kind of society I dream of. Coming back to Preeti, she is very strong and yet very sweet. I'm sure you'll agree with me when you meet her in a moment. Let's hear from Preeti. Preeti, thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on the Be Your Own Boss podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It will be really delightful to share some of my learnings, and
Looking forward to it. So, Preeti, let's start with your journey from the very beginning. Your parents and your childhood. You grew up in Malaysia, and then later on you moved to Australia, right?
Yes, my childhood was in a small town actually in up north from Kuala Lumpur in a town called Ipoh. And if you've been to Malaysia, it's a little tiny, well, it's used to be a town, but now it's a city between Kuala Lumpur and Penang.
Yeah, and how was the environment at home?
Yeah, middle class family, Sachin. We are middle class family. Mom was a teacher. She was a primary school teacher. Dad is used to be he was in the police, and not a police. Not someone with a uniform, but in the administration side of the police force. And he also had a side business. He had all palm plantation. So
Oh,
I think it's
wow.
been in the family that we always had not just employment, but employment and business.
Yeah, yeah. And growing up, did you have that aspiration that one day you also want to start your own business?
Actually, look, the way we were brought up with my parents, right? Education was important. It was always instilled in us that financial independence has, whether you're a woman or a man, makes no difference. You have to have financial independence. We used to call it, my mom used to call it the power of the purse. You have to have your own money. All right.
Yeah.
And so that's how we were brought up. It was to be educated, to get married, have children, and live happily ever after. That was the mantra, so to speak, in the house. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice, and I think that's very critical. Right at right in the beginning, you have that mindset of you want to be independent, and this is very important for everyone to have that. This is important for the society as a whole, right? That we should each individual must be financially independent. Yeah. And so, in terms of your studies and further studies, so what did you go into after your, let's say, your schooling and everything?
Well, I actually wanted to become a doctor, but it didn't happen that way. Firstly, because, you know, they want my mom wanted my dad, both parents wanted me to be educated, but there was always this thing about if you become a doctor, you will have no time for your family. you know? And so it was like a compromise. Become a lawyer. Don't become a doctor. You'll have more time. If you become a lawyer, it's in office hours. You'll come back. You'll have more time for your family, which is bizarre because being a lawyer and if you know, being in the corporate line, it is so busy. And I've experienced what that was like working 15-hour days, coming home and your child is already sleeping. But yeah, but it's the perception, how you I think our parents though they wanted us to be educated, but yet the values was around, you got to make time for your family. You have to be there for your husband. You got to be there for your children. So it was like trying to juggle or to balance that.
Mm.
Right? It was quite interesting going through that phase where I get so confused sometimes. I say, well, hold on, do you want me to soar? Do you want me to become independent? But yet you're holding me back. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you did between, I mean, you, although you wanted to become a doctor and your parents insisted that you should go into law. So then did you go study law, and tell us about that part of your
Yeah. I think I was living my dad's dream. You see, my dad always wanted to become a lawyer, but he never got to become a lawyer because he was the oldest in the family. And they were, from a dairy farm. The parents were running a dairy farm. Times were hard. And so the moment he was able to get a job, he had to support the rest of his siblings through their education. So my father was the oldest of seven siblings, of six siblings, so seven children altogether, and he always dreamt of going and studying law in London, but he never got to do it. So I think at the back of his mind, he thought, you know what, my daughter will fulfill that dream for me, and I did. So I did become
wow.
a lawyer. Yeah.
Wow, that's very sweet. So you became a lawyer, and then did you start practicing here, right there in Malaysia?
Yes, I did. I practiced for about in litigation. I was practicing for about 4 years and then opted to go into the corporate. So I became a legal counsel and worked my way up to being a general counsel in a public listed company. It was a property development company, construction and property development. So, and truly enjoyed what I did. I really did enjoy it. And I must say, I think especially with my generation, I didn't see women mentors available for me at that time as I was growing in my career and progressing. But I had some wonderful male mentors who championed me. So I feel really good that I was able to actually grow in my career through male mentorships.
Yeah, and you brought up a very important point there. Like, we do see this imbalance, and we still see it. It's improving, but we still see the imbalance in terms of the number of women leaders versus men leaders in the corporate world, right? Although
Mhm.
we have made a lot of progress in the last few years, but what do you think is the reason for that, especially in the corporate world? If you see at the individual contributor level, the proportion is bigger, right? As you go on, as you go higher in the corporate ladder, we see that the numbers say that the percentage becomes smaller and smaller.
Yeah,
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 why is
yeah.
that?
Look, Sachin, there are various barriers to gender equality. All right, as you know, this week it's been International Women's Day, International Women's Week, actually, or we call it here International Women's Month, and through conversations, it's we know that there are barriers to women climbing up the ladder, barriers to women joining work and staying in the workforce and progressing in their careers because there's societal barriers, there's cultural barriers for sure. Sometimes cultural barriers can be, like I mentioned earlier, when I wanted to become a doctor, one of the cultural barriers for me was, oh, you wouldn't have time for your family then. So this is sometimes depends on the kind of culture you come from. And then there's organizational barriers, especially around the structures, the policies on how they recruit their employees. you know there are so many studies and research that's been done that when a resume that's a female resume compared to a male's resume, for some reason that unconscious bias kicks in, and for some reason men get the job more than women because men who are already in the corporate line are just employing more men into their fields because we've got I call it the motherhood penalty. All right, because a lot of the time what happens is in the back of the mind, this is the unconscious bias, right? If someone's going to employ a woman, the first thing that goes on in their heads is, oh, if she's only going to be here for 2 years, she's going to be a mother, she's going to leave her job, that's going to cause a disruption to our business and the flow. We might as well employ a man who's going to be able to be here for the long haul. That
Mhm.
kind of mindset does play a role in causing the barriers. And a third barrier, which I constantly point out to my own clients, is around our personal barriers. We do have them. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. It's too hard. I'm not smart enough. I will fail. A lot of the time, women have that. Whether it's self confidence or whether it's because they don't have women mentors to champion them, where they can open up and have a talk conversation with a lady who's already been through that journey. It is so important to look out, especially women who are in the workplace. Like recently, I delivered a talk in one of the events this week, and one of the ladies in the audience asked me. She said, "But I don't have any female mentors within my organization. How am I going to learn from someone who's been through the journey?" So my advice to them is look outside of your workplace, network more. Join industry bodies where you're going to meet other women who've been through that journey. And I personally feel like, and I would advise, well, I'll encourage other women who've been through that, especially women who have reached a certain level in the corporate line. Put your hands up to mentor the young women who are in the workforce. Don't stop and feel like you've got nothing to add or no value to offer them. Honestly, you don't know the impact you can have on someone's life and in their career. So I would suggest go out there, seek out, especially women who have already reached, whether they're CEOs, directors, senior level management. Reach out to the young women, go and seek them, and put your hand up to mentor them. It's so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. And also for the younger women, put your hand out and volunteer to do. If you think that there is something that is challenging, go ahead and just jump into it. You'll figure out a way to do it, right? And you've been in those situations where it was after you've done it, you will like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
I know. And a lot of the time, what happens is I've seen it myself. We're in the boardroom, and you've got really talented women in the boardroom just keeping quiet. And then they come out of the meeting and they've got all these lovely ideas that they didn't share in the meeting. And I said, why didn't you bring it up during the meeting? This is brilliant idea. She said, oh, I know. And, they would be like, I'm too shy, or I don't know if I was doing the right thing. What if I'm wrong? I said, you're never wrong. There's never a stupid idea. All right. Just, you got to put your hand up, let your voices be heard. It's so important. It's so important. And once you do it once, that courage just, it will just blossom. You will just have that. You will be brave enough to open your mouth at any time and contribute. No point just sitting at the table. You come to the table to contribute, right? So that's what I tell junior team members. Just don't worry about it. Speak your mind. Just speak your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that thought, Preeti. And let's talk about your corporate journey a little more in the context of women empowerment here. Do you remember any specific incident where you felt like, uh, it was uh, difficult, or you were being dealt with differently uh, because of being a woman, and how did you manage that?
That's such a brilliant question. Honestly, I want to share this. All right. So, as a junior lawyer, being the only lady in the boardroom, people assume that you're the secretary. People assume that. So, I remember this, right? I remember this vividly because my CEO said to me, pretty, and they were all men around the table. There was a jug of water with glasses in the center of the table. And he said to me, being the only female, he said, "Can you please pour everyone water?" As a junior lawyer, I did it because, oh, my boss is asking me to do something. There's no way I'm going to defy him. All right. Because I didn't know, I didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the skills to say, hold on, why are you asking me? And why are you singling me out to pour water for everyone? Many years later, I think I was, about 5 years in, and the same scenario happened. But I learned the skill sets to become more self-aware, to be aware of others. And I very gently said, with humor, I was trying to be assertive, but I was being assertive in a very um kind way. Let's put it that way. I don't know how else to describe it, but I said, "Oh, Mr. CEO, if I poured water, I'm probably going to spill water on everyone. So why don't you ask so and so? I think I've seen them do it and they do it really well." And that way, I was never again asked to pour water.
Yeah.
Never again. Yeah. So I
Wow.
think it's about learning how to be assertive, but doing it by just focusing not on you. Don't feel like you're a victim. Don't feel like, because the mindset of whoever has asked you to do something, obviously he's got unconscious bias. And I can tell you, we all have unconscious bias. We all have it, men and women. So let's not bash men up, okay? Because I've got them as well. I know I've had to catch myself out as well sometimes. But I think it's about you learning how to deal, taking control of the situation and learning how to respond in in a non victimhood manner.
So the key is like you be assertive, and you use a nice couple of words there, kind assertive, right? So you were kind assertive, or gently being assertive, and
Yeah.
shifting the focus away from you.
I think it's about using your feminine energy. You know, don't try to be a man. I mean, all my years of climbing up the ladder, and I from what I've seen how other women do it as well, for some reason some women feel like if they want to climb up the corporate ladder, they've got to behave like a man, be aggressive and things like that. You don't have to. Honestly, use your feminine power. I call it feminine intelligence. We've heard of emotional intelligence. I call it using your feminine intelligence. And what are they? The nurturing qualities, the compassion, the empathy, the, you know, it's also about, but being completely aware of how you're protecting yourself. All right. How are you being assertive? But like I said, do it in a gentle way,
Yeah.
kindness.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that energy, the female energy, the male energy, like in Chinese there is a term
Yin
for
and yang.
these, yin and yang. Yes. And it is also not just in the interest of the woman, but it is in the interest of the corporate world, of the society, or the world at large, that we can progress when we have the right balance of energy. I'm not saying that we should only have all women leaders. What I intend, or the society I dream about, is where there is a right balance of the two kinds of energy.
Totally agree. The masculine and the feminine. You know what? Interestingly, we all have it. Women have masculine energy, men have feminine energy. But it's how there will be times when you need to raise your feminine energy. There'll be times when you have to raise your masculine energy. But it's around the balance, right? Like you said, it's about balancing it out. And sometimes, yes, your feminine energy can help you achieve more. I want to just very quickly give you an example of how a woman leader leads with her feminine energy. Do you know Indra Nui?
Pepsi.
Yeah, PepsiCo. That's right. So she was the ex-CEO and of PepsiCo. What was her strength? Her strength was her feminine energy. And you know what she used to do, which I thought was just remarkable. And the men started emulating what she was doing. She used to write to the parents of her senior leadership team and thank them for what wonderful children, and how their children have now grown and contribute to the business. And she used to do this, if I'm not mistaken, it used to be Mother's Day. She would send the mother a Mother's Day card and a thank you card. So much so
Wow.
that her male colleagues started copying her and say, Indra, can you give us a copy of your template? What do you write to these parents? And she was able to retain all her leadership. There was one. She told a story about once when one of her leadership team members was going to resign. In fact, the mother called her and said, "I don't want my son to resign." So
Wow.
that's a very
Yeah.
simple example of what feminine power is. You
Yeah.
know, a man wouldn't have thought about doing something like that, right?
Yeah. That's an emotional intelligence there, right? Yeah.
That's
EQ.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Great, Preeti. Let's shift gears here and talk about your journey. And so you were working in the corporate world now as a lawyer, right? So how did the thought of starting your own and what kind of business? So tell us about that. How did you start
Sure.
thinking of that?
So when I moved back in Malaysia, I was in a general counsel, a lawyer in a corporate field in a public listed company. When I moved to Australia, I moved here as a single mom. It was just me and my son. I've reestablished myself here. And you know what, Sachin, we're constantly reinventing ourselves, right? So what I did was I didn't get back into law immediately. I established myself as a compliance professional and was working with several building construction companies, and totally enjoyed what I was doing. Then eventually, because I was totally committed to being a mother as well, I want to just highlight that the reason I decided to move here was because working 15-hour days, 13-hour days back home, I didn't have time for my son. I would come back home from work. My son is already sleeping. I would check his homework, and then I only saw him every day when I dropped him off at school in the mornings. We had home help, like I had someone at home. What happened was he didn't recognize me. Well, he didn't come to me for comfort. Let's put it that way. He would run to the nanny. And he
Yeah.
broke my heart one day when he was at a pool. We were at the swimming pool. He fell. I put my hands out for him to run to me so I can comfort him. Instead, he runs to the nanny. And that is when I decided I had to make a change. I had to make the change. It was the guilty mom syndrome that was happening in me. What was I doing? Spending all my time in my office, and my son's being brought up by a nanny. I couldn't deal with it. Decided to move here so that I could just work in school hours, had the time to pick him up, etc. But then what happened was, once my son finished, or he was about to finish his high school, I decided that now it's time to focus on me. So then I decided that I was going to do something different. I decided to go back into law but if you come to Malaysia, you've got to requalify. Sorry, if you come
No,
to Australia,
Australia.
you've got to requalify from in Malaysia. Even though my degree is from University of London, I still had to requalify, and I did. Thankfully, I didn't have too many units to do. I only had 3 units to do out of the 13, and requalified. But as I was completing and getting admitted to the bar here in WA, I got this job offer that I couldn't refuse. The pay was good. It was great. Corporate again. But now I had the time to immerse myself in the corporate line, right? Because my son's grown up, he's going into university. So I did. I decided to get into the corporate line. 3 years in, this was 2021. I woke up one morning on a Saturday. It was a winter morning. We have our winters here in the middle of the year. And it was cold. It was about 4 in the morning, feeling really restless, feeling really, like fire in your belly, kind of restless. And I thought, is this it? Is this it? Is this what I'm going to do for the next, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 years of my life? Just the hamster wheel and getting nowhere, and that's when I decided that. So what happened was I went to my garage and I was looking into the boxes which I had brought from Malaysia, and I found all my journals, and I realized that I was able to turn my life around. And within my journals was my journey around and learnings around how I had turned my life around. Sachin, there was a time when I was at the crossroads of my life when I thought this is it. I couldn't go on with life anymore. I decided that it was either, to end all that pain or choose to live and transform myself. So I did that. I did that. And all those learnings and notes and hundreds of books that I had read, I had notes in my journals about that. As I was browsing through, and I thought, I want to share this. I want to share this because it breaks my heart when I see women struggle. It breaks my heart when I see them being held back by those personal barriers I spoke about earlier. Okay. And I want to help them. And I realized that it's not just women I want to help. I also want to help the men because it's not only women who have those personal barriers, men have it too. All right.
Absolutely.
And that's when I decided I had to do something about it. And and I also thought, you know what? Am I going to go on with life building the legacy of my bosses, or am I going to do something to build my own legacy? But I like to say it's not just about building my legacy, or it's not about, becoming a successful business. It's not all about becoming a successful business. It's a lot about making the difference. It's a lot about what you can offer and how you can help make a difference to someone's life. And things will fall into place. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this. So I spoke to my son about it, who was already in university then. And he said, Ma, what are you waiting for? Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to start a business. So although the ideas were there in July, but I didn't have the courage until later part of the year in 2021.
Okay. And what was the thought? Like you wanted to start what, or write a book, or start a, what was the idea really?
Well, the idea was to empower women, all right? You see, a lot of the time, we are so closed off in our minds, all right? I wanted to help women and others as well to transform their fixed mindset to have a growth mindset, to transform it to a growth mindset, or from victimhood to an adaptable mindset. All right. And I was going to do it through helping them understand what is the blueprint of their mindset. A lot of the time I notice that we get in the loop of blame, complain, comparing, jealousy, envy, and then we feel like a victim. It's my mother's fault. It's my ex-husband's fault. My life is like this. But you know what? You can take control of your life. You can actually, the power is within you. So I created a program, and I was holding workshops. All right. So I created a program about awakening your mind, your inner power, and then reprogramming your mental blueprint. All right. Switch from blame to taking responsibility. Switch from fearing change to embracing change and embracing challenges. So that whole mental reality blueprint, it's got an acronym called REALITY, REALITY. So R is for responsibility, E is for embracing change, A is for awareness. Be aware of yourself, be aware of others. L is for hold space for love in your heart. Because when you hold space for love in your heart, there is that, what resides in that space: kindness, compassion, empathy, love, not just about romantic love, right? Love is a lot around how you practice kindness, how you practice gratitude for yourself and for others who are in your circle, people who are in your life. Be grateful for them. And then I is for be in an innovative mode, continuous improvement, improve, reinvent yourself. If something doesn't work out, that's fine. You've learned the lesson. Switch, let's reinvent, let's do something else. You must constantly be prepared to detour when you meet obstacles in your life. And then, of course, time. Time is now. The present is so important. Stop living in the past. Do you know living in the past is a lot like you're driving your car towards your future, but you're looking at the back? How do you think that's going to work out for you?
Yeah.
Right? You're probably not going to get anywhere. So that's what thinking about the past and living in the past is about. And of course, why is for the person in the mirror, you. Honor
Yeah.
you. Be proud of you. Love you.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this short break. You're listening to the Be Your Own Boss podcast. By the way, if you find this podcast useful, please share it with your friends and family so that someone somewhere having the potential and the dream to start a business can get some help and some inspiration from this. And if you'd like to support me so that I can bring in more content, please subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to right now. And you can also send me your feedback on byob@sachinacharya.com. That's byob@sachinacharya.com. And now, back to the show.
Wow, that's very nicely put. So reality is has a deep meaning there, right? Wow.
Very deep meaning. And the best part is I actually extracted this from my journals because I had taken notes down and I kept saying things like I have to take responsibility. In fact, I had my own personal pledge from 16 years ago. And I extracted this reality blueprint from my own personal pledge, a commitment that I made to myself. And that's how I then decided I was going to develop a program around it.
Yeah. So these journals that you found in your garage, these were that journals that you've been writing over the years. You had this habit of writing journals all the time.
Oh my God, the power of writing, it's just phenomenal. Please, everyone, I mean, especially when you're going through adversities in life, you're going through a difficult time. I was going through a very, very tough time with a breakup in the marriage. Rather, it was a dead marriage, and then I couldn't leave the marriage because you can't. If you're married, you have to stay married no matter how unhappy you are. But I decided to break the norm and break the rules, and decided to move away from the marriage. So I was going through a very, very hard time, and journaling was the way I could express my emotions. Journaling helped me to get those negative emotions out of my system. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't say negative emotions. It was more emotions that were not constructive. They were not productive. They were not going to serve me. All right. And I knew they were not serving me. They were pulling me down into this deep rabbit hole. And if we get into that deep rabbit hole, it takes a lot to come out of that rabbit hole. You start relying on medication, you start relying on antidepressants, and you start seeing a therapist. But trust me, I've been through all that. It didn't help me. So what helped me was my journaling and the commitment that I made to myself that I was going to change the circumstances. Yeah.
Was it also this journaling that helped you at that crossroads of your life when you mentioned about when you were at the point where do I end my life or do I move
Yeah.
forward?
Interesting you asked that because at that moment when I stood up from that bathroom floor and I looked at myself in the mirror and I asked myself, what are you doing? What are you doing? You've got a son who needs you. I walked out of that bathroom door, went straight to my desk, and I just started writing. And it was as if I was downloading all this information from the universe. I don't even know where all this data, this is information was coming from, but I wrote myself that 18-page commitment statement, 18 pages. And I said, and that's why I said the power of writing is just phenomenal, because if you just think about it, you forget. All right, you forget, and then you default to the old ways. It's very easy to keep defaulting to your old ways. We all are programmed with, negative self-talk and things like that. So it's our job to break through that barrier. So when I sat down and I wrote that 18-page commitment statement, I had something to go back to. That was like my for one of a better word, like my Bible. It was always there for me to cross-reference to. Am I doing what I said I was going to do? Am I leading my life the way I want to lead it? So yeah.
Wow, kudos to you for committing to yourself and sticking to it. And this journaling helped you in that, right? And uh, now that when you now when you were in Australia now, and you decided that you're going to take all this information, convert that into create courses, and you start
Mm,
helping women. Tell us about that journey. Then did
sure.
the legal aspect of it, like, did you have to register yourself as a company, or let's start with that.
All right. So I decided then that I was going to start promoting my programs. Yes, you need to have your business registered here. You've got to have an ABN. And I did all that. Then
What's an sorry, Preeti,
ABN,
what's an
it's
AVN?
Australian business. You've got to have an Australian business number.
Ah, okay.
All right. Okay. So it's just like a company registration number.
Yeah.
All right. So I did that, and I started holding workshops, like face-to-face workshops. This was December 2021. And then we were hit by all the lockdowns that was happening here. And I thought, oh, there goes my whole idea about trying to run a business. This is going to be a failure. Well, not so much a failure, but I had to put a stop to my face-to-face workshops. People were not coming in, women were not coming in. And then so what I did then was, I think it was the best thing that happened, because I started having it online, all
Mm.
right, through Zoom. And the best part is I started having clients from Malaysia. I started having clients from Indonesia, Dubai, as well as the US and the UK. So I started having clients from everywhere. It was global. And I thought, oh my God, this is great. This is fantastic. So went on with that for a while. And but I was still in my day job. I'm still in my day job now. All right. Yes, I've set up a business. Yes, I started, doing my workshops online, which is great. Then I felt like, oh, I needed to have a website. I needed to have branding. You know how you want to rush things, and especially me, I know I'm so impatient. And I started doing all that and investing a lot of money in that. But I can tell you right now, stop, don't do that. Don't do that, because I realized that I was still so new in the business. This was way back in 2021, and spending money on websites when actually my niche has now shifted. So my whole branding has shifted, because I learned later that I was actually getting women from the corporate line coming to me. And there was a lot of requests for emotional intelligence as part of a program as well. Then it resulted in me getting myself certified as an emotional intelligence practitioner. And I started using the emotional intelligence programs and embedding my own programs within it for clients who wanted something different. All right. But what happened was I had spent money on my branding. I had spent money on my website. Color, they come up with a branding booklet for you. And I spent so much, and I thought, oh my God, now everything's shifted. Everything has changed. So my advice to you is, if you're starting off a business, don't rush. Don't rush. I think what you need to do is create something simple, maybe a sales page. You don't need to have a full-blown WordPress website. Just have a sales page to express, obviously you've got to put yourself out there, you've got to market what you do, but don't spend loads of money on branding and blah 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 yet, until you have at least 6 months to a year in before you decide what is your niche
Yeah.
and who's your target audience.
Yeah. And what about the name? In your case, did you, because you already set up you spent money on your website and everything, you decided the name already?
Yeah, my business name is called Empowered by Design, because I felt like I became empowered through my own design. Like my reality blueprint was something I designed. And I also tell my clients, you have this blueprint, but you can certainly design a blueprint that works for you. What is the blueprint of your mindset that you want to create for yourself in order to see where you want to go in life, how you show up, where you lead your life? You can create your own blueprint. But this is how I did mine, and I can guide you with how you want to do yours. So I feel like we create our lives, we create our destiny. We can design it any way we want. We in control of how our life unfolds. Seriously,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially if you're not living your life based on the expectations of others. Take control back. Don't live your life based on other people's expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the starting point, right? This is to take control of your destiny in your own hands. So, and Preeti, you brought up an important part there about spending before earning. So and all this money that you were spending on creating the brand and creating the booklets and everything, this was
Mm.
all, I mean, your job was funding it, all right, because and somewhere we kind of course it is our money, but then the point is that you were not generating revenue from the business yet at this point, right?
No, I wasn't generating enough revenue. I wasn't breaking even, let's put it that way. All right. So I wasn't generating enough income to cover my living costs and my expenses to the business. And well, it did cover some of the business expenses, yes, but wasn't going to be able to enable me to leave my job. All right. I wasn't able to transition. So, but I would say that, you know what, although I may say don't do it, I don't regret having done it because I learned from it.
Yeah.
All right. And this is what you're doing, Sachin. This is your podcast enables someone like me to share what my journey has been like so others don't make the same mistakes. And if you've already done it, it's okay. Don't take it as a failure or a mistake, but a learning experience. It's a
Mm.
learning experience. All right. Don't start kicking yourself for having done whatever you've done, because I decided I don't want to live my life with regrets. Never again. Okay. And so everything is a learning journey for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Preeti, when now that you've set up this for quite some time and you're running workshops and everything, have you hired some people? Do you have a team, or do you do it on your own?
No, I do have a team who does all my socials. All right. So someone who actually has got the time to sit down and design my socials, the artwork, the creativity. And how I work around that is I sit down every Sunday afternoons before the week begins and create the list of what I want posted for the week. And then I send that off and it gets created. Yeah, so that's my support that I have, and I also have a support of my son who's in university. Although he always says, "Mom, you got to pay me for it," so I do have my son and his girlfriend who help me out as well whenever I need help, and And the wonderful thing about having a niece as well, who is so savvy in everything she does. But so these are the support system that I currently have. I've not employed employees, but it's
Hmm.
important that if you can call upon a support system like this to help you out. And as we all know today, the generation, they're so good with everything tech. I come from a generation that I'm not really fantastic with technology, but I'm learning. And I think I'm pretty good. I'm getting there. I'm pretty good now. But I've got a support network that helps me without me having to be out of pocket too much. So I think you
Yeah.
got to call on that support network. If you can't engage someone, you can't pay someone too much of money, just call on a support network that can help you.
Yeah, yeah, and the new generation is very, very smart. I have in my podcast, my 11-year-old son gives me advice on how I should work on my social media and everything.
There you go. It's as if they're born with the iPhone in their hand and they can use the iPhone. So yeah, everything. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, Preeti, now that if at this stage of your journey, when you look back, the day in the bathroom when you walked, looked at the mirror, right from that moment until the person that you have evolved into now, who would you like to give the credit to for your success?
You know what I want to say? I think I inspired me at that moment. I inspired me. So that was me d- making a decision that I'm never going to put myself in that low again. I'm never going to ever put myself in that position again. I know when I talk about it, sometimes I get emotional, and but yeah, I never want to be in that position. So I think I inspired me. But the other person that inspired me, who was the person that motivated me to do what I needed to do, was my son. And I will say, hand on my heart, that through my journey, my son has been my biggest fan. Like he's been there throughout for me and always cheering me on. And he's like, "Mama, you can do this, Mama." And yeah, sorry, I'm tearing up.
No, it's
So
absolutely. This is yeah. It is wonderful that that your son and you and your son are have been through this whole thing together, and you have come out victorious. Kudos.
oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
It's good. And then I sometimes wonder what my life would have been like if I had a daughter, but I think it would have been the same. You know, it would
yeah,
have been the same. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. What a wonderful journey, Preeti. And let's talk about the present moment here now. So you're focusing on your business. You have your job. Do you manage to take out some time for leisure sometimes?
My biggest challenge is, Sachin, is time. I wish I had more time. And I think also when you come to a certain age in life, you wish you had more time. It's a natural thing. And but I do have a wonderful day job. I do enjoy it very, very much. I do. And the wonderful thing is, although I'm playing in the polarity of both my business and my job, I've been able to now, there's now an opportunity to merge it. So I'm going to be doing corporate training within my own employment with my company. So which is a really good thing because I absolutely, like I said, my whole approach has changed. My whole target audience has changed. I'm looking at empowering women and men in the workplace, helping them actually to elevate their personal power by with emotional intelligence. Okay, and so currently I've introduced what I do in my business into my workplace, and they're very keen to have my programs rolled out internally, which is such a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so nice of them, and it's like the
yeah.
relationship that you have with your in your job because they're supporting you and they're
Oh
excited
yes,
about what you're bringing.
yes, they do. I honestly, my employers are the best. Look, I don't know whether it's like that in another country, but in Australia here, we are constantly looking at how our employees are growing and progressing. They will never say you can't do this. There is no conflict of interest between what I do in my business and my job. There's no conflict of interest. In fact, they encourage me to go out and do talking. I do talking events. I do events where I'm a public speaker. I share my story. I talk about emotional intelligence. In fact, I was sitting with my boss yesterday, just casually having a chat. Actually, he's not even my direct boss. He's the leader of the WA branch, and he said, "Pretty, I heard you were delivering a speech at this event. How did it go?" And I said, "Oh my God." And I started showing him photographs, and I said, "It was so good." And I said that the number of women who want me to mentor them, a number of them who've, sent me a LinkedIn message to say, "Can you come into my company and talk to us about emotional intelligence?" And my boss he didn't flinch. He said, "That's so good. That's fantastic." So I think where I'm going with this is that if you can carve out a way of merging your business with your employment, if you're not in a situation where you can completely leave your job and transition to your business, but try to merge where you can what you do with your employment. If you can't do that, then at least maybe work out something like, and this is where I was going to go earlier this year. I was going to ask for shorter hours and possibly, 4-day week or 9-day fortnight, where I can start focusing more on the business side of things. But when you set an intention, when you say you want to do something like that, somehow the universe works things out for you. All
Yes.
right. And then when my company said, "Hey, Pretty, I know you're doing emotional intelligence out there. What is it about? How can we use your program internally?" I'm like, there you go. I mean, it just works out. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, Preeti, what would be your advice to the people who are in that starting point of they're in a job and they want to start a business and they are still not sure about how they will be able to manage their time between the job and the business?
I just want to say that I don't know whether I just stumbled into it, or it just it became very convenient for me because majority of my clients were from different time zone, which meant I could attend to my clients after my work hours here. So it didn't clash. It didn't, I had my work hours. I came home and I'm seeing clients in the evenings and on weekends. I decided that I'm not going to spend my time with Netflix, even though I do understand leisure and watching movies and relaxing is very important. But I thought, how many series of Netflix am I going to watch when I can actually be making a difference, focusing on my business and helping others make a difference in their life? So I started doing that on after hours and evenings, weekends, things like that. All right. And yeah, I think it's important to lay out your priorities. Okay. You need an income. You need to pay your bills. You've got family, children. You got to spend time. Where you can delegate as far as children, and I've seen this with my friends who started business and they've got young children. If they can delegate time, delegate the task that's involving the children. If your children is 10 years old and above, they can start doing their own laundry, they can start doing their own, you got to help them to help themselves. So you got to make sure that they start doing them, so you're not doting over them constantly and you have time for your business. And in my case, my son's grown up. All my time now is me. He's not even living with me anymore. He's moved to the Gold Coast. But I'm an empty nester. I have the time. But I can completely understand it if you've got young children at home. And I've seen some of my friends who've got a day job, running a business, running a family. It can get very overwhelming and daunting as well. But I think delegating the task, setting your priorities, and if you can negotiate something with your employers, maybe you don't want to spend until 6 in the evening in the office. Maybe you need to come off early from work. Maybe you can start early so that you can come off early from work. So these are things that you got to think about and work it out with your employers, where you can then come home. You probably have to prepare a meal, but if you've got a great relationship with your husband, that you balance things out in the household, where he cooks one day and you cook the next, or things like that, and delegate with the kids, I think you can carve out time. What I've started doing initially was saying, if I can spend 3 hours a day on my business, and I would sit after dinner and spend time on my business, 3 hours a day. That was how I started off. And then weekends, I would say, all right, during the day, during weekdays, it's 3 hours a day. On weekends, maybe I can put 5 hours a day, 5 hours on a weekend to focus on my business. And you find that when you start looking for the time and start prioritizing and time management, you find the time. You can find the time. I think a lot of the time we'll say, oh, I don't have the time, I don't have the time. But when you haven't tried to plan your day out, all right, if you think about it, 24 hours a day, 8 hours at work, 8 hours you sleep, you still have 8 hours more. What are you doing in that 8 hours?
Yeah, very well said. And I like the idea of dedicating that time of 3 hours a day, and longer hours on weekends. And
Mm.
yeah, so you're busy with these things like this, and do you go on vacations?
I did. I was back in Malaysia for a family wedding just before Christmas. I was there for 10 days. That was incredible. It was lovely. It's always lovely going back to Malaysia because I enjoyed my family, my friends, and the food. And but it can get hectic when it's a wedding, and you know how Indian weddings are. It's one day after another, after another, after another. So it's celebrations after celebrations. You can get a bit tired. But I am planning, my son, me, and his girlfriend, and my niece. We are traveling to Greece, hopefully November this year. So I
Wow.
am taking a whole chunk out, 3 weeks, and going to London and Greece. That's the plan for now. Haven't got my tickets yet. It's all talk at the moment, but that's the plan. So, yes, absolutely. I agree with you. We need to have time for ourselves with family. You got to learn to switch off and rejuvenate.
Rejuvenate,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
My ways, I go on solo trips sometimes and take some time.
Oh, I did that. I did a solo trip in 2019 where I decided no one was coming with me. I did a big trip, 3.5 weeks to New York. I did the US. All right. So I did New Orleans, Orlando, the Bahamas, so the Key West. It was just amazing. Amazing.
Wow.
And it was a fantastic solo trip.
Yeah, it's kind of a self-discovery, right? It's when you go on these solo trips, it's a beautiful experience. Yeah.
Oh, the best part is you don't have to worry about anybody else. You just wake up whatever time you want to wake up, and you go whichever direction you want to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Preeti, one final question as we conclude here. How can people reach out to you to get benefited from the workshops you do, or corporates or individuals?
Talking about the website earlier, I'm getting my website reconstructed. So you can find me on my website once it goes live. It's empoweredbydesign.com.au. All right, that's Australia. It's empoweredbydesign.com.au. At the moment, like I said, it's under construction, but very soon, in a couple of weeks, it should be live. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great medium for me to connect. So you can send me a message, connect with me, and I'm constantly posting little nuggets of valuable learning. So do connect with me. And my LinkedIn name will be Preetie Boler. So yeah, I will hope to see you there
Yeah.
and in connecting with me. Yeah.
Sure. I will include the links of your LinkedIn profile and your website in the show notes and in the description for YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you.
Preeti, what a wonderful conversation. I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on the show.
Sachin, I've enjoyed it. It's been a delight. Thank you for the opportunity as well. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's Preetie Boler, the founder of Empowered by Design, and you've been listening to Be Your Own Boss.